Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Here's the kick by Bond. It's going to be fielded by Miami. Rashard Smith right up the middle. Rashard Smith across the 20. He's at the 30. Here we go. Rashard Smith got the 40. Then midfield. Middle of the field. He's at the 30. One man to beat at the 20. 15, 10, 5. Rashard Smith goes all the way for a Miami touchdown. There is Bedlam at Hard Rock Stadium.
A lot of empty formation, trying to tire out the D-line. Pass. Intercepted, deflected, and picked off. And running with it is Slay. And he breaks the tackle and gallops to the end zone for the pick six.
Mayfield with time over the middle. Caught. Touchdown. Trey Palmer, the rookie from Nebraska, with his first NFL touchdown. Sims will run it this time with a leg. It's a sideline. He can move. Sims down the sideline at the 10. 5 touchdown, Nebraska. That's what you want from Jeff Sims. 57 yards.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what I said. I said, if number one, we'll get it corrected. If we stick together, which I know we will, we'll get it corrected. If there's any sliver of hope, if there's anything that's good, it's that in these moments where we're having 4 turnovers or we're, the game gets away from us, the guys get to see, coaches that they didn't really sign up to play for, right? Players sometimes they didn't sign up to play with. They get to see how we all react. And they get to see that, I'm going to be the same guy every day. I'm going to take ownership of the things I can control and try to get better. So I hope that we go closer. And I hope this is the type of thing that, teaches our guys what wins football games. Can't turn the ball over and win.
Welcome into the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla on a Monday. Coming off of a big football weekend, we've got NFL. I'm pretty sure nothing else happened in football this week, right? Just NFL?
No. I'm just going to lament in
NFL, high school. That's all.
I'm just going to lament in high school. My Steelers got mollywopped.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Oh, that's fine. There's some idiots that apparently don't know me very well.
Yeah.
That will chirp about, my teams and stuff. And I always have to remember, just because I wouldn't do that to people doesn't mean that I think they have any class. Because I'm not that dude. Right?
I'm not either.
I don't. And it typically comes from people that
don't actually know you that well,
or have won anything or competed at anything, or because I'm not. And everybody is different, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing that I get to do is decide who I want to respond to and not. So
who you want to be around.
Yeah. So it's going to be the theme for today, right? I get to take ownership.
Yeah.
For that. So obviously, Nebraska is on the struggle bus. The Dodgers kind of plodding along.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like in some weird way, this is the craziest analogy ever.
Mm-hmm.
The Dodgers are a lot like Nebraska. It's not really going to matter until you do something meaningful. So even in these next 2 weeks, Nebraska is going to have to guard against, and maybe it's more a thin-slate internal thing than it is the outward expectations of the fan base. They have to stay in the moment, even though you may not get any sort of accolades or whatever for playing against these next 2 opponents. Because when you're winless, you're not afforded that luxury.
Yeah, you don't get to look ahead.
And so I know the Dodgers are like, oh, let's wait till they get to the playoffs. Let's wait till they get to the Braves if they get there. So, but in the meantime, you still have to do what you do.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you have to get to that point.
Yeah.
Right. You don't get to look past Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech because you don't have any wins.
Haven't earned the right.
And listen, nobody should look ahead, but there's teams that have gotten to a place in their program where you can take for granted the fact, okay, they're going to win these next 2 games.
Yeah.
And then Michigan is when it matters. Guess what? Northern Illinois is when it matters.
Yeah. Zero guarantees out here.
Yeah, especially for a Nebraska team looking for their first win of the season. And listen, I get we're only 2 games in, but I think most of us had at least 1-1 coming out of these 2. that was the reasonable expectation, I thought.
Yeah, and it's not even so much about the record right now as much
what
as
it
how
looked
it
like.
looks.
Yeah,
how it looks.
Well, I mean, we can, I guess, jump right in.
Well, where are we? Are we at the Hurrdat Sports
Bar? We are at the Hurrdat Sports Bar.
How do people get in touch with us?
I've been
those little nuances, you know what I mean? Like,
listen, I'm just ready to go.
I kind of am.
Yeah. Well, because there's things I've wanted to talk to you about specifically.
I know. So I have 226,000 DMs.
Yeah.
That says the same thing.
Yeah. But I actually get to talk to you. So that's the difference here.
I tried to answer most of them.
While you're sifting through the DMs here, we are at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill.
I don't have any from this morning.
At the H&H Chevrolet stage. You can hear us on AM 590 ESPN Omaha or ESPN Tri-Cities out in central Nebraska.
Hello.
You can also catch us on Twitter, YouTube.
Dang, I was hoping not to be in
streaming live.
Fudge.
I mean, you're wearing the cool short sleeve hoodie. Like, why else would it be on camera?
Hey, so hello. What's up, little princess? How we doing? So we have these with white lettering too, but allegedly they were a misprint from the factory.
Yeah.
The white looks better.
I mean, hey, if you want to throw your boy some misprints, like,
I got you. You need some. You know what? You have been I'm gonna give you a little love. You have been a tremendous fan from day one.
I have, yeah.
And I don't think it had anything to do with me because you're kind of a hater by nature. So, like, if you could not have to hop on board, I don't think you would. Right?
No, well, I'd be honest with you.
I'd be
honest with you if it wasn't what you thought it was.
Right.
Or if I didn't think it was what you thought it was.
But it turns out you may be way ahead of the game.
Well, I certainly am.
Now you have a lot of people that are on your team.
I'm certainly way ahead of the game on, like, Anthony Rizak because I need that dude to get a Power 5 offer stat.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you put him as an athlete. He's a quarterback. That's fine. Call him whatever you want to make your class work.
Yeah.
May or may not be talking to people in Lincoln, but call him whatever you want to make your classes work out. But get that man a scholarship offer and get him into a quarterback room.
Yeah.
Because if there's a better quarterback in the state, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll get to high school, but here's the thing about.
I'm just saying he's over there dropping dimes, and then Hausen runs from 80 yards out. So
yeah,
and pulling away from D-backs with D1 offers. So
yeah, some of those guys are supposed to be pretty fast, aren't they?
I'm pretty sure they are fast.
Yeah, they don't.
He was just like, "See ya."
He doesn't get caught. There's a thing called game speed.
Yeah, and he's certainly got it. So that's where you can find us.
Anyway, the white looks better, but I'm gonna hook you up.
All right, yeah. See what you can do.
Coach Manju, give me the green light for
you. You can hit us up on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline, 888-638-4876. Or remember, we've got an email dedicated to the show, thedbshow@hurrdatsports.com. That's how you can get a hold of us. Of course, Twitter at Damon Benning, at R.A. Lulla. Your DMs were crazy. My mentions were crazy this weekend.
Yeah, it's off the chain.
It was. Now, part of that's my own doing because I like tweet during the game a lot, and so you get a lot of reactions and stuff.
You know, sometimes I shouldn't even get people started, but like, obviously couldn't work out the logistics for the travel schedule. I wanted to make sure that I coached at this high school game. So
it was a big one. It was Westside Bellevue West. Like, it was a really big date on the schedule for you guys.
And I love kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, I need without just imagine if I didn't coach this weekend. Like, if I wasn't around the kids.
Yeah. You'd be in some kind of mood, probably.
Oh yeah. Like it totally matters. And it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's good for the listeners.
Much easier to be around.
I need to be around young people. But so I utilize rewinding, and people say, "Oh man, I want to watch a game with you." Actually, you probably don't, because
you watch it like a coach.
Yeah, that's how so you're gonna hear a lot of the coach in me.
Yeah,
talking about Nebraska today because I'm not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I'm really not. I can love something, I can sleep and eat it, and I cannot have a fan perspective. At no point with Nebraska do I have a fan's perspective.
Right.
Like, so you'll never ever,
because you'll go from like a former player's perspective.
Yep.
You'll go from a coach perspective.
Yep.
You'll go from even like an alumni perspective. Hey, I want my university to succeed. right?
100%.
But that's a whole different. You can.
I'm not emotional.
Right. You can wish for the best for your university and your football program and not view it like a fan.
Yeah. So
I view it much more like a fan.
So however, whatever the game time was, run time, like I'm going back to still watch things and I may miss 4 or 5 plays in a row.
Yeah. Then you'll catch up in commercials.
And then I'll catch up in commercials.
Yeah.
Right. So like you really don't want to be in the same room.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, people, do you want to go catch no. No, I'll be right here where I have pause and a clicker. And,
yeah. So I do that on the second watch.
I'd like a laser pointer.
Oh yeah.
Like that would really be good because now I'm.
Do you have like the projection screen that you can do?
No, but I do have an okay size. It's not a monster, but I mean it's cool. It works for.
Yeah,
it works for me, right? But it's like so my feedback to questions 888-638-4876 or in the comment section won't be, and I think people know this if you listen to me for 11 years or however long it's been, if you count the breakdowns, way more than that. Very rarely will it sound like a fan. So sometimes I'm not going to be for everybody. If you like want me to like over it, like these people, like people like send me stuff just piling on.
Yeah.
Like,
which I don't get.
No, but here's the thing. Like assume I know the what.
Yeah. The interesting conversation is the how and the why.
Like assume I can see what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so I don't need for people to reiterate
right
what I'm already seeing.
And listen,
because that's not going to be a conversation. Those will just be statements.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Right.
There's not going to be a lot of back and forth.
There's not going to be any back and forth to that.
Right.
That's just a declarative. It's the opinion. It has a period at the end.
Right.
And I'm going to keep it pushing.
And now sometimes I will ask you to make sure I'm seeing the what that's actually there, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying something else.
Right. 100%.
But if somebody's just like, hey, did you see XYZ? And it's like, I'm watching.
Yeah.
We got it. And listen, part of what I think we do well is explain the what in terms that people can understand. I thought we did a really good job of that Friday, kind of breaking down some more technical football stuff.
I do. This is a weird thing about me. I do take some solace is not the word, but I'm okay with people venting to me.
Sure.
As a sounding board because I think I can take it.
Yeah.
I may not just respond.
Sure.
Right. So like it's cool because I want you to be healthy and I'm glad people can do that. But fudge, I mean now I gotta send pizzas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like, that's not ideal.
Yeah. It is unbelievable how he won that bet.
Yeah, especially because that looked like a game that was going to be decided by probably a score for 2/3 of it. I mean, we're talking it was 13-7 in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And all 10 of those 13 were directly off turnovers.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they had another touchdown after that was off turnovers as well. But it was I have a obviously much more emotional reaction to these things than you do.
Yeah.
We come at it from very different places in terms of our life experiences to get there, right? And so yeah, when you're following me along on Twitter, it is a little bit of a emotional roller coaster there, but I appreciate the people that go on that ride with me. The things that I wanted to get into, because we know what, like you said, we know what the what is, right? We know that it's, hey, the 4 turnovers in 2 straight games. We know it's the lack of execution. We know it's the unforced errors and the untimely penalties and all of these things, right? We know what the what is. The interesting conversations to me are the how, the why, and what's the solution, right? So that's kind of where I want to start. And you have to start with Jeff Sims, right? There's no other place to start here if you're looking at it from a Nebraska's perspective, especially. And to me, there's kind of 2 narratives that I want to address. There's the on-field football stuff, right? The why is this happening? Are there common threads between the turnovers in the first game and the turnovers in the second game? Because Jeff Sims's part in that was very different in terms of what his turnovers looked like from game 1 to game 2. That kind of scares me a little bit. But then there's also the philosophical stuff, which I want to get to second. But let's start with the football. 4 turnovers in each game, so the first 2 games of the season. Dead last in the country in turnover margin. I mean, it's hard to have more than -6 in 2 games. From a football standpoint, what did you see, if anything, that was a common thread in the turnovers? Because they looked really different to me.
So you're talking about from game 1 to game 2, or through the course of Saturday?
Well, either. I'm thinking from game 1 to game 2.
Game 1 to game 2, it was concentration.
Mm-hmm.
It was just simply being dialed in, right?
So for both games, you thought the turnovers were tied to focus, basically?
No. I said from game 1 to game 2, the biggest difference was in game 2, it was lack of concentration.
Okay.
In game 1, it was lack of execution. So right now we're experiencing, this is just my opinion, but this is how I would break it down to, like, if it were our team or something, like there's a difference between technical and tactical.
Okay.
Right. It's like technical is like the execution of specific skills. Tactical is it's knowing when and where to be, kind of how you're getting there. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the strategy of it.
So Nebraska is struggling more with the technical than the tactical. Now you can get into like sequential play calling and that those kinds of things, like putting folks in the best position to have success. But you can't assume the worst when you snap a ball.
Right.
Yes. So that's,
if you can't get to the point where you've got the ball in your hands,
correct,
to try and execute the tactical, then nothing else really matters.
Correct. Because I mean, we went through probably 2 years, 2.5 for the Cam Jurgens haters of questionable snaps. And we saw a quarterback handle him. Now, I thought the whole Cam Jurgens thing was way overblown, because they said he's a Sunday guy and the juice is worth the squeeze.
Year 1, I think it was reasonable. After that, it was pretty well cleaned up.
It was background noise. Yeah. I'm like, okay. That's one of those things where I don't look at it like a fan. Right. I'm looking at risk reward.
Right. And after year 1, the risk was worth the reward.
Yeah. Just like I'm looking at this risk reward. So I think Coach Rhule has a couple of things that he has to really shore up in a little bit of time.
Okay.
Number 1 is what's my feel in the locker room? How do my guys feel about the messages that we're trying to convey? Do they believe in me? If they believe in me, then he can talk to them in a certain way that may not make sense to us. He can say, hey, listen, I know why Anthony Grant didn't play on Saturday. Anthony Grant knows why he didn't play on Saturday. Harburg knows why he didn't get snaps when, 68%, 78% of the free world was clamoring for Jeff Sims to sit a series. If he can rationalize that with his team, then it's like, who am I? Right.
Sure. If they're still on board with it, who am I to not be?
So it doesn't matter if we say things like, oh man, he's on the verge of losing the team. Because basically anybody that
we have no idea.
We have no idea.
We have no idea.
You have no idea.
He might be, but we would have no idea. One way or the other.
You really have no idea. And do I believe he is? Absolutely not.
No, I don't.
But so I don't subscribe to that. So what Sims has got to be able to do is, if he's going to continue to be the guy, because there's that much of a discrepancy, then it's like he simply has to play better. And play better doesn't mean make huge plays. Play better just simply means do the basics.
Make fewer mistakes.
Just do the basics.
Yeah.
And so I get the piling on, and I love the guys and gals that, because I hear this a ton. Oh, they can't stretch the fields. Guys can't get separation. How do you, for those that are saying that, I would love to, how do you know?
Yeah.
Do you watch all 22 and you don't see guys open? Because I do.
Yeah.
I do see guys
especially open. From week 1 to week 2. I thought guys were running open.
Yeah. For Malachi, I'll just use this as an example because I don't even think Malachi Coleman is ready to play every down. But if you want to like nitpick, Malachi Coleman was behind the defense in Minneapolis in game one. Tommy Hill was behind the
his
defense
defender.
In game one.
Throw didn't get there.
Like, I'm not one of those guys. Like, you have to be careful. People can make you dumber. So you have to be careful who you listen to.
For sure.
Because I don't believe that's the issue, right? If Bullock makes a catch when it's 20-7, that game potentially could look different.
Sure.
Did he have separation?
Yeah, he was open.
He had separation.
He was open.
He had separation.
Absolutely.
When you look at two of Colorado's bigger plays, Nebraska comes on a pressure blitz, a +2. For whatever the reason, Tommy Hill is peeking in the backfield. Now, you're in man-to-man. He's peeking in the backfield. I don't call that separation, even though
there was a gap between
the defender, because that's a guy.
That's a mistake.
That's a mistake.
He didn't beat you. You made a mistake.
I don't call the sail route that Shedeur Sanders dropped in between three defenders. I don't call that separation. That's not what got those routes open.
Right.
So sometimes we can fall into this narrative because we don't know what we're watching.
Yeah.
So be careful with that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not the issue. The issue right now is execution.
Yeah. Doesn't matter how open your receivers get if you can't catch a snap.
It is execution.
Yeah.
You could get into things as simple as missing holes.
Bouncing stuff to the outside too early.
Like just simply missing holes. Right? Cutting inside versus cutting across people's face, where instead of 2nd and 8, I mean, you clearly could be looking at 2nd and 1 or 2. But what do we say? Oh, man, the offensive line is this, that, and
I didn't think the offensive line played bad.
No, and now, do some guys have to play better?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No question. But to pigeonhole this thing on a particular thing or a particular guy is a little bit odd, unless you're talking about specific like snaps, because that's easy to see.
That should be an easy fix.
Now, again, one of the things that I would love to know is because it seemed to be on a certain type of formation, right? Nebraska would be in bunch. They would bring we see all sorts of teams run this, right? It's a little duo concept where the guy that comes in motion is going to kick out or he's going to wrap, and you run zone to the motion. Every time that guy came, and I wasn't even really paying attention, but real time on Twitter, I was like, ooh, that's on the snap. Or, oh man, that almost hit that guy. Like I'm just tweeting like little did I know it was gonna be
the whole thing.
But even in the second half when they went back to it, it almost hit him again.
Yep. And that's and
I'm like, so I don't really know who that's on. So I'm trying to go back and watch. Does Sims give him a ready call?
Yeah.
And then
is he mistiming the motion in the snap? Is it the motion man not going fast?
There are lots of those little things that I think they have to get to this week. But he has to decide. Coach Rhule has to decide. Okay, listen. What's the separation gap between 1 and 2, and how do I coach my way into having options? Because that's what we have to get to in this next segment.
Yeah.
You have to coach your way into having options. And what does that look like if you're playing the long game?
Kool-Aid Steve, hold on. We'll be back on Benning and Lulla here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds.
There was never a conversation about
Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
There was never a conversation about taking Heinrich out. You know, even with the cadences, I can't tell you yet. Yeah, there's never thought of putting Heinrich in. We have some plays for him, that we were going to potentially utilize. So he might have been getting ready for one of those things. I think, for me, I won't be able to really comment, truly, because it's such a big deal to comment on the quarterback, right? So we know globally it's too many turnovers, but in terms of what exactly went wrong, was the center late with the snap, was the motion. I have to go back and look at those things. And then we had some good drives. You had a penalty all of a sudden, it had nothing to do with the quarterback. So for us, I think if you look at the year so far, I think we've taken one ball away, right? And we've two now right at the end of that game, but so we're -6. And, that is sort of the story that we've been trying to fix. And so I haven't gotten it fixed yet. And I'm going to keep doing it keep working on it until we get it fixed.
Whether you're an alumni like Damon or a fan like me, Alumni Hall has you covered. They're your ultimate Husker shopping experience. The best and largest selection of apparel for the whole family. Adidas, Champion, Columbia, gifts, accessories, and 10% off if you're a UNL student, your faculty, or military. And you can always join their Hall Pass Rewards program. They've got 2 locations in Lincoln, Peace Street downtown, or in the South Point Pavilion, or anytime you can go to alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Husker fans or alumni shop.
Visited that site last night looking for something for Zoe.
Yeah?
Yeah, she wants a hat.
She wants some gear?
She wants something to wear Saturday. So
there you go.
Yeah, she's going with her brother.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Zoe Ryder.
There we go.
About to tear Lincoln up.
Got it. Well, everybody watch out for Big Z.
Her little 5-year-old self. She wants some gear.
Watch out for Big Z in Lincoln on Saturday.
Gotta make little kids Husker gear. She likes to rock caps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's wearing the hats. I'm
it. 99% sure she gets that from her mom.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen you in a hat. So yeah, probably.
Yeah. Hey, I have a sweet flex foot fit that's sitting on the end of my bed, and I want to wear it so bad. I'm so worried.
You're just not a hat guy?
No, I love collecting them. Like
yeah.
I have 100 might be strong, but
a lot of hats.
I have a, and they're in my closet, but I just
you just don't wear them.
Well, I'm worried about getting into the habit too. I don't have enough discipline to not, because I used to wear them all the time. Then I used to worry about my hair, and then I have an exceptionally big head. So I'm like, do I cover it up? Do I not?
Does it look bigger with the hat?
Yeah,
Is it drawn too much attention to it?
You like my voice. God, it sucks. I'm a little insecure, so I just leave them in the box.
Fair enough. Well,
can I, before you get going, can I read you some stuff? No, you go. I want to read you some stuff.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you guys some statistical numbers.
Yeah.
And you tell me, number one, just be thinking out loud what you think the score is, and how many quote unquote wholesale changes would you make, right?
Okay.
Because these are the things that I hear. Need to do something with Coach Satterfield. Can't believe they hitched their wagon to Jeff Sims. Need to get rid of Donnie Raiola. Like there's some reoccurring things that I keep hearing, right? I want to know what you guys would do, and I'm genuinely curious, right? I would tell you if I wanted it. I told you so moment, but there isn't one here. I'm just listening. So red zone attempts.
Okay,
let's take red zone attempts.
Yep.
Nebraska was 100%. They were 1 of 1.
Okay.
Colorado was 6 of 6. In the red zone, though, they scored a total of 29 points.
Colorado.
Yeah. Even though they were 6 of 6 scoring in the red zone, still for only 21 yards. Third down conversions. Colorado was 9 of 17. Nebraska was 4 of 13. Okay. They both were over on fourth down. Penalties. Nebraska 6 for 40. Colorado 9 for 80. And that includes the bad penalty that they called on the sidelines.
The Travis Hunter one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Colorado didn't yield points from that, but extended drives. What would you have guessed the difference in time of possession?
Well, it was Nebraska favored in the first half. I think it switched in the second half, so I would guess pretty close to even.
Yep. Colorado had the ball 38 seconds more than Nebraska. Would you have guessed that watching?
Probably not in real time, because it felt like they had the ball so much in the second half. But when I thought about it, Nebraska did exactly what they wanted to in the first half.
Okay,
I think it wasn't evenly distributed. You know what I mean?
For as much as we lament about this varsity offense that Colorado was running versus the JV offense of Minnesota, which I never subscribed to.
Right.
Okay. So hey, it's not like you guys think. Nebraska tackles for loss 11. Colorado 6. Tackle for lost yards, -59 to -31 in Nebraska's favor. For as good as everybody talked about Colorado's defense was on Saturday, PBUs, 3 for Colorado, 2 for Nebraska. Quarterback hurries, 3 apiece. Quarterback sacks, 8 for Nebraska, 2 for Colorado. Nebraska had the only forced fumble of the game. The only one. Yet Colorado had 3 fumble recoveries. Colorado had the 1 interception. Punting. Nebraska netted 36 yards. Colorado netted 38. Colorado had 2 inside the 20. Nebraska goes 0 of 1 on their field goal attempt. Colorado goes 3 for 3. Punt returns, Colorado only had 2 for 11. Now, let me go over to the rushing statistics. Right now, are you thinking 22-point victory for Colorado?
Not 22, but it sounds like they won.
It does?
I mean, on the turnovers alone.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Net rushing yards net rushing yards.
This one's big, I know.
222 to 72.
Yeah.
Rushing attempts, 41 to 33. Both those in favor for Nebraska.
Yep.
Yards per rush, 5.4 to 3.3. Colorado had 2 rushing touchdowns. Colorado lost 53 yards because you have to factor in sacks, right? Colorado had 21 more completions than Nebraska in the passing game. Is that to be expected, or is that an anomaly?
I think it's expected to be more, but that's a lot.
I think it's expected, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably more than I expected, but not a ton more.
How many yards per completion greater was Colorado than Nebraska? Average per completion.
Average per completion. I'm going to say attempt or completion?
Average per completion.
Ooh, probably pretty close.
12.8 to 10.9.
In Nebraska's favor.
In Colorado's
favor.
So it's
31 for 390 something. And 11
so as
for,
vaunted as we thought these things were, if Nebraska could do a couple. So number one, it starts with pass protection. 2, it starts with handling snaps. Are those controllables or non-controllables?
Handling the snaps is 100% controllable.
It's a controllable.
Pass protection is somewhat controllable, but there is some of it's on the defense too.
Some gray.
Yeah.
So based on what I told you, how much of a panic are you in?
My only spot for panic, genuinely, is Jeff Sims.
Okay.
Because a lot of everything else, like I love the rushing stats.
Okay.
I love the defensive stats. I'm convinced that if Nebraska doesn't put their defense in such bad positions, Colorado doesn't sniff 36 points.
Do you know how many yards after the catch Colorado had?
How many?
129.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we kind of have this, we had this thing in our head of how it went. But I'm looking at this this is a coach now. What can I control? So Shane, can you play the clip, please? Nope, he's on the phone. I wanted him to come back play the clip. Shane, play the clip that he can't play the clip because he's on the phone. The clip that we opened this segment with, where Coach Rhule said he had to get inside. Why? What was what with Sims?
Yeah, whether it was the
snap late,
whether it was the snap count, whatever it was.
But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because we keep saying this, right, with turnovers. Do you get the feel that Nebraska is a quarterback away?
Away from what is the question?
Let's just answer the general part first.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And listen, I'm not saying a quarterback away from Big Ten championship, from whatever, right? I think they're a quarterback away from being no worse than 1-1, and at that 7-5 spot we were talking about, I do think they're a quarterback away from 7-5.
Okay. Because so far, I think, we'll take a break and we'll come back.
Yeah, Steve, still hang on. I'm sorry. We will get to you.
Yeah, we're going to have to get an address.
Yeah, we've got more Benning and Lulla here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Yeah, Chubb has been dealing with just he had like a tweaked a little something, and so he's kind of not purely himself. So Heinrich's, they were kind of together at one point, and then about a week and a half ago, good enough to practice, but just can't really truly be himself. And so, he went in once Heinrich went down, but we would go with Heinrich as the number 2.
Here we go, wrapping up hour number 1 on a Monday on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. If you have been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with a helping hand when you need it, no matter what you're dealing with. Call the Dyer Law team at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your personal injury claim. That's DYER.law. All right, before we get any further, Kool-Aid Steve's been hanging on the line More or less patiently. We will get to him now on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Steve, how's it going?
Well, good. How are you?
Oh, we're doing all right.
So who am I speaking with?
This is Ravi. Damon's here too.
Oh, okay.
Steve, do you call that many shows? Because that hurts my feelings. I thought we had a special thing here.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Like, I mean, you don't know that you're talking to me, or like, what are we doing?
Well, I didn't hear you. All I heard was Robbie, and I don't talk with him. I was waiting for you to come on
and give me my comeuppance.
Well, so what do you have to say, Robbie? You were riding me pretty hard, telling me that I didn't know what I was talking about. So what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, my take is obviously I was wrong. You know, they lost by 22. What'd you say, 21? So you were pretty much right on the money there. I also didn't account for Nebraska's quarterback getting the yips in Colorado, so that was probably
we'll get to
that. Was probably
I don't know if he does. He may
bigger factor than I realized. But hey, however it went down, you got it right. So all kudos to you there, Steve.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. As Damon knows, I'm about as subtle as a sledgehammer. So at least acknowledging that, you know, I posted some stuff out on Facebook right after the Minnesota game, and I said I don't think Sims will finish the Colorado game, and I don't think he'll finish the season as a starter, and he'll join the transfer portal again. And man, they jumped me. And, you know, I just state what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And Nebraska fans, in my opinion, are kind of like Biden voters. They can see that things have doubled in price and things aren't going well, but they won't admit it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just don't see. So where do you guys see the rest of this season going?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the big thing about this week is Nebraska's offense has to give themselves some options if they don't like the way that people are playing. And so I think that ownership is on the coaches to make sure that they, you know, you heard Coach Rhule say, you know, we have a couple plays for quarterback blank. Well, you know, they may have to take a look at having multiple offensive packages for multiple people, because you can't be married to one particular thing if it doesn't work, if it's inevitably going bad. Do you know what I mean? So like that's one key. The other thing is, and Ravi used the word, and I hate to just put it on one guy because I think the play calling could help Sims out too. But one thing that I'll be curious to see if it continues, I don't know if Sims has the yips, because while he's turned it over a little bit in practice, it's not crazy
times in 2 games,
right?
Or
so
7,
there's something that happens in games, like even the throwback pass that he completed in Minnesota.
He still dropped the
that
pass.
Was an easy catch.
Yeah, Anthony Grant made a good throw.
Like that was an easy catch, and he should have just caught it and threw it to Bullocks. And so I don't know, like that's hard as like the coach in me. You don't always see that, and you hope to not assume it either, because you think you're coaching your way. You're an alpha, right? So you're thinking, God, he looks like this here, but maybe the trend is that he could have the yips. That I don't know. Like I think this week will tell me a lot.
Well, okay.
It'll tell me a lot about a lot. It'll tell me a lot about the coach's directions in which they want to go. It'll tell me a lot about the coach's relationship in the locker room with the players, right? Because what's the low-hanging fruit that everybody's picking? Well, how come it doesn't work for Anthony Grant, but then it does Jeff Sims? Like those questions will have to be answered, and I'm sure it'll come up today in his presser, right? So I'm kind of in the wait and see approach.
Well, okay. So
is that fair?
You know, I get it. I mean, you don't want to, kick somebody to the curb after, almost 2 games. I understand that. But we also know that there's a difference between practice players and game players.
Yeah, and sometimes that takes time. But I'm with 100. You're 100% right. 100% right.
But no. Don't cut this guy a break. He's a transfer coming in here. He's not an incoming freshman. It's not the bright lights.
Okay, but let me just tell you. Let me tell you something here, Steve. So yes, you're right. He's trending in the wrong direction, right? He's showing that he is who he has been. I'm telling you how coaches look at it, because a lot of times when you get projects and you've done something having success, the thing is, coaches think that, like, I've never caught a fish in my life, but if I spent time around you, you think that you could teach me how to catch fish. Like,
I would hope so. That's part of my.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I think sometimes people think if you spend enough time around me, I can help you with the technical aspects. That's why coaches coach. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me ask you this.
Okay.
I was very surprised at the second half that he started the second half. Okay. I predicted and I said, look, if this guy turns the ball over twice in the first half against Colorado, he should be pulled. That's just my personality, right?
Yeah.
We went through 4 years with Martinez not getting any better. That's
the thing, though, Steve. One has nothing to do with the other. That's not on Coach Rhule's watch, my guy. Like, that's not his burden to bear. That's a fan perspective. That's different. It's not right or wrong. It's just different. He doesn't have to own that.
So how long? And I'm going to ask this and then kind of state my opinion. I don't think a successful team truly can have a 2 or 3 quarterbacks and you come in for this set of plays.
I'm with you.
Goal line, we're on this.
You're probably right.
And from the 30, we're going to run this. So is this something that we should have this quarterback play straightened out and a definitive starter? I mean, so Chubba Purdy didn't impress me the last couple of years as the backup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now the other kid from Kearney,
Harburg,
got kind of okay. I don't know that much about him, and then I just know that there's incoming freshmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to the other team and the other coach. At a certain point, you cut bait or you fish. Okay. So at what point do we say, okay, we're not going to get to 6 wins this year. We don't have any confidence in Sims being able to hold on to the ball or not throw interceptions. So we're going to give X, Y, and Z some game experience. Do you think that happens in the next 2 games and then we come out, against who's the next Big Ten opponent?
Michigan.
I don't even know.
Michigan.
Okay. And we're, even if Sims played extremely, extremely well, we're probably going to go in as a 14-point dog, right? So the chances of winning that game is slim anyway, even if Sims was playing well.
Mm-hmm. So
do we say, you know what, we're going to find out what we have and we're going to start building for next year?
Here's the thing.
Everybody had hoped we were going to get 6 wins and we were going to go to a bowl game and that was going to be, rainbows and unicorns.
Mm.
I've looked at the schedule, maybe Northwestern and Purdue and the next 2 games should be wins. That gets us to 4. I don't see us getting 2 more anywhere.
Yeah. So the good thing is you don't, is the staff and the players can't afford to be married to that outlook, right? That's not why they go to that's not how they look at it. So I'm not going to put that on them, and I'm not going to chastise you for that opinion. I'm just telling you the players and the coaches haven't resigned themselves to only X amount of wins. So what the staff has to figure out at what's the hemorrhaging point? Like, how combustible is it where because remember, Coach Rhule said at the beginning of the season he wasn't gonna mortgage the season on the backs of young players. Now, I don't think he saw it starting like this, so he's gonna have to go back and revisit that sentiment, because that's not something that he wanted to do in year one. But a couple of things can happen. The old guys could maybe not be holding up their end of it more than he thought, and the young guys could also be better than he thought going in. So he's going to have to reevaluate that on the fly, if that makes sense. I just sent you a message too, by the way, so you can text me back.
Steve, we appreciate you joining us.
Okay, buddy.
We got to get out of here and get to our friend Sam McKewon coming up next on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes.
Yeah, they weren't going to let us run him much there. Yeah, we did versus their offense.
We will be back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, we knew versus their offense that we were going to have to, we were going to have to try to.
We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Yeah, they had 3 big plays in the second half on third downs, right? One, they ran by us in zero coverage. We brought a max blitz. One was that play where they kind of scrambled around. I mean, a lot of credit to Shedeur. I mean, he's running around making plays back there. And they threw the ball down the sideline. And one was a run. And so those plays really tilted the field. And, we're not getting those same explosive plays. So I think, the great thing about the defensive staff that we have is they're going to go back and, put the hat on their head and see what they can do better. I thought we had some really good things early on, getting some pressure, dropping out, not getting pressure. And we've had a chance to get that's the type of game you need to get your hand on the ball, pick a ball off and run it, turn it back. We had some chances. We'll just keep getting better.
It's hour number 2 here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We are waiting on our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. And while we do that, I want to remind you that another one of our friends, Marty Cordero, is going to be joining us tomorrow from the Omaha Storm Chasers. The Storm Chasers kick off their last homestand of the season tomorrow. So make sure you get out to Werner Park and support the Storm Chasers before their season wraps up here on Sunday. Tuesday through Sunday, they'll be in town at Werner Park. Shane, we still waiting on Sam?
Yeah, still
okay.
Searching for him.
So there's a thing where I wanted to get into. We were talking to Steve last segment, but before that, you were talking about coaching yourself into options, right? So my question there is that more about, because the obvious thing that first comes to mind is like, hey, you got to recruit and develop in a way that you've got multiple guys you feel comfortable playing, right?
Yeah.
The other part of that, though, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, and maybe we can ask Sam about this as well, is part of that also getting or calling a game in a way where other guys can be capable?
Yes, but it has to be in the confines of your problem solving. So that's always the caveat, right? You can do that.
Yeah.
But does it help us alleviate what it is that ails?
The pain points.
If the answer is yes, then that's what you have to do.
Joining us now, our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing all right.
I'm good. How about you, Sam? You got some tough realities, right? You're probably the first to ask the questions out loud about Coach Satterfield and Coach Sims and that marriage. You and I talked a ton about that in the offseason, right? I thought he would be the one wild card coach to watch. Too soon or right on time?
Well, I mean, you try to take things in context, and the context of this moment is they're 0-2. They've got some time. I mean, they've got a couple of games where the defense is, will be smaller and group of 5 groups, and then they have Michigan, and then they have Illinois. So they've got some time to try to figure out who they want to be and what they want to do. The Michigan game is going to play out a little bit differently based on how good Michigan is and how you try to play that game. I think, out of Colorado, the understanding was, hey, we want to win this game. We're probably going to have to score some points in order to do that. Maybe there's some things that we're going to try to do or get done, or so on and so forth. So I think just contextually speaking, the reality is Nebraska has 8 turnovers in 2 games. The offensive coordinator has had explosive offenses, to be clear. He did.
They usually take time.
Right, but they've also committed turnovers when he was at South Carolina and Temple. They did. And a lot of fumbles. And there's only so much you can control there. Simultaneously, the quarterback has 37 turnovers in 27 games. And that's how you're last in the nation in turnover margin, is you've combined a scheme and a quarterback that their strength is big plays. What we've seen, what the resume says is turnovers, and you've got to find a way to create big plays and reduce the turnovers. And so, I don't know that I'm pointing out anything that wasn't already there. I just feel like, Matt Rhule inherited some tough stuff on the offense. There's been a lot of change and turnover on that side of the ball. The defense has a better culture. They had a better culture. They were coached by Eric Chenander. Chenander was a better culture builder for his side of the ball than Scott Frost was for his. And so Matt Rhule inherited that, but then he made choices of who he was going to hire and who he was going to recruit as a quarterback, and he recruited and hired, some giveaways, and now they're going to have to reckon with that. And I think they got to rethink what they're doing, because what they're doing doesn't seem to completely suit the quarterback at hand. That would be my thing.
No. So why do you say that, Sam?
Well,
let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Do you like the way that he handles the ball in the choice run game or the option run game?
Yeah, he's been okay.
Okay.
There.
Do you like the way that he handles the ball in the RPO game?
Well, he hasn't thrown it very much off of those.
Okay, but from what we've seen, and I'm not trying to paint you in a corner. I'm just trying to have an intellectual conversation. No. I'm not setting you up.
Go ahead.
So if we say that, what kind of offense do you run where you simply don't get snaps? Because these weren't poor throws. That's what we harped on the other day. It was, oh my gosh, right? He has no touch. Now this week he can't handle snaps. So what is it about the offense that has you arriving at that?
Well, I think some of it is I wonder if, because they're shifting things play to play, and they're bringing in different personnel groupings, and they're moving guys on and off the field.
Oh, okay,
spending 35 to 40 seconds.
Gotcha.
Between every single play, coming up to the line of scrimmage, making the checks, bringing the motions across. There's a lot going on pre-snap. There's nothing wrong with that. Because they've chosen to play this way, and because they have an under the center run game, which I think you have to have, and I like personally, and it's working at times. But the reality is, they're not throwing the ball over the top. They're not creating a lot of big plays. The offense that they have, I would describe as, a ball control, pro style. Yeah, they're doing some ball handling with the quarterback, yes, but things that you would now see in today's NFL. That stuff is there, and they're kind of moving at a slower pace, and those things are okay, but you have to score points. And I think my concern is there's things that can look aesthetically pleasing when Gabe Ervin rips off a 13-yard run.
He still left a ton of yards out on the field too.
I agree.
Man.
But then he'd still have to rip off 3 more 13-yard runs to get into inside the 20. And so you have to find a way to get chunk plays and to move the chains. And if you have a play that goes behind the line of scrimmage, then you've got issues. And some of it's the offensive line, Damon. I mean, they're still not an elite line. And, I remember years ago talking to James Franklin at Big Ten Media Days about this offense that they're trying to run now. And his statement back then was, you have to have a great offensive line and great tight ends to run that kind of offense. He was referencing the offense that Mike Riley was going to run with Tanner Lee. And Penn State's actually running that offense for the most part now, but they have all those components, and it took them a long time to get them. And I think Nebraska just, I don't know. Like, I think you could go faster tempo. I think that might get Jeff Sims a little bit out of the, I'm only going to do something every 40 seconds mode. But I admit, and I write this today in my rewind, that these are amateur dart throws. Dart throws. That's all they are, because it's very hard to account for some of the mistakes that Sims has made.
Right.
The other thing I say is, if you put Harburg in there, you can't pull him out the minute he makes a turnover of his own, which he will, because that's what freshmen do. And if he does that, and then you pull him out and you're putting Sims back in, you're getting into this, carousel of, as I write, Mike Ditka-esque quarterback decision making, where you make decisions based on who irritates you at that moment, and that's fan behavior. And I don't think Matt Rhule's going to do that. I don't think that you can start to operate on that level as a head coach. I don't think they would do that. I think they need to stick with Jeff Sims but they need to think about what works best for him.
Okay.
Sam, I'm curious with some of the stuff, and you brought up Marcus Satterfield and the turnovers that he's had as an offensive coordinator, but how much of that do you put on Satterfield and the positions? You mentioned a lot going on with the pre-snap motion and things like that. And how much of it do you just have to say, hey, Jeff Sims wasn't catching the ball on Saturday? I mean, you can maybe watch the Minnesota game and say, hey, some of that's on Satterfield. I don't know how much of it you can watch on against Colorado and say, yeah, that's on Marcus Satterfield. I guess, how do you kind of distinguish between Jeff Sims not catching the ball and Satterfield putting him in good positions?
And there's some very distinct similarities between Rattler and Sims.
Sure. I think that in the miniature, there's not much, and I write that. There's only so much that a coach can do about those things. In the miniature, very little. It's just pointing out the trend. And the trend of lost fumbles stretches over many seasons with, different quarterbacks. Mostly PJ Walker and Spencer Round. And whoever they were playing in 2021 at South Carolina, Zeb Noland and whoever else. That's just the story. Now, when he was the head coach at Tennessee Tech, it was the same issue there too. So, and that's fine. Teams lose fumbles. That's not uncommon. Teams have turnovers. That stuff happens. It was a little bit better at Tennessee Tech, to be honest with you. But I don't know that you put a ton on it. Again, you can say, hey, it's on this player. Put that player on the bench. And let's go with another guy. I'm just saying that if you go with the other guy, you got to give that guy time. You have to give him time. Like, you can't just say, all right, well, you get to go out here.
Yep.
And if you drop a snap, well, then you're out. And then we're going to put the other guy in. Like, if you want to go with Harburg, then you're going to have to go with Harburg for a while. Like, or otherwise, I mean, you can do whatever the hell you want, or otherwise you risk losing trust with the team. If you're just sort of shuffling guys in and out. Spurrier did that once, and that was some sort of weird rotational system. But you can't that's just not the thing that you want to do. You want to try to have the team build its confidence around one guy and go forward with that guy. If you try messing with that a lot, then you get what Nebraska had in 2020, where, okay, Adrian made the mistakes, time for Luke. All right, Luke throws a couple of picks, time for Adrian. And then Luke leaves, and he probably should have left anyway. Now he's a receiver, but you risk losing people and confidence with the team when you start messing around too much with that position. And so I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I'm just laying out the terms of what I see, maybe getting ahead of it a little bit. They're going to play Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech, and if they knock it out of the park and kick both those teams' butts, then I think the concerns are over. If Northern Illinois comes in here with a smaller defense that's going to try to muddy things up and get really aggressive, we'll see how Nebraska handles it.
Sam, what do you think puts you at greater risk for losing some of the trust or confidence of the team, having Harburg out there and pulling him when he makes a mistake, or continuing to leave Jeff Sims out there when he has continued to make mistakes, and that's something you've specifically harped on?
Yeah, I mean, they're different kinds of situations, and so Rhule knows the temperature of his team, and if he comes and says today we're going to go with a different quarterback, then that's what they do. If they say, hey, we're gonna rally behind Jeff, that's what they'll do. He may have the advantage of saying Jeff Sims is questionable for this week, and so we're not sure what's going to happen. And it gives them an opportunity to prepare Heinrich Harburg to play while simultaneously opting out possibilities that Sims doesn't. You get if you go down that road and Sims can't play, you go back to 2018 Troy. There's always a historical reference to this stuff. And Andrew Bunch is playing, and you just never know. I would strongly advise Nebraska win on Saturday. I think I'm sure fans are disappointed that they lost to Colorado, but they can acknowledge what they see on the field with Colorado's offense is pretty darn good. Losing to a group of 5 team, when those things happen around here, that's not good. Coaches. I mean, this isn't going to happen to Rhule, but somebody is. Bad things happen. Like, fans just get really upset because they really don't like losing to a group of 5 teams. That's just not what they do. For what it's worth, it has happened many times in the early tenures of new coaches. Bill Callahan against Southern Miss, Scott Frost against Troy, Mike Riley against BYU. It does happen.
Let me ask you something, Sam. Amy had it on Twitter, I mean, pretty fresh on Saturday, and I know it's going to come up today. How much will you formulate your thoughts on the question that Ravi just asked you based on the comparison between Anthony Grant and Jeff Sims?
Well, I think the difference in the two positions, I think, is notable. I think there's a couple of different ways. There's two different ways you can look at that question. The first way you can look at the question is, if you did that to Grant, shouldn't you do that to Sims? The second way you can look at that question is, if you didn't do that to Sims, why did you do it to Grant? And, you know, maybe that's part of the conversation here. And maybe there's an opportunity to, you know, you get to Grant some more playing time. Maybe that's something that Matt Rhule said in mid-August that he might like back now. You know, I know the declaration surprised us at the time. And then we get to the first game, and then Grant played more than Irvin, which was confusing. And then we get to the second game, and Grant doesn't play at all, and Irvin played okay. You know, I mean, yes, he left some yards out there, and he had a weird fumble that I don't know was exactly his fault. But, you know, maybe Grant could have played more. There's things that you have to sort of parse through as you go through the process. Again, if you want to sit Jeff Sims down for what he did, I understand that.
Mm-hmm. I'm
just saying that if you put a backup quarterback in, and the backup quarterback's job is mostly to punish Jeff Sims, then you're not doing right by the backup, and you're not doing right by the team. You got to put a backup in because you believe that guy is going to give you a better chance to win a football game, not because you're trying to make sure that you have rhetorical consistency between your two positions.
Okay, that's beautiful right there. So if the desired outcome is the desired outcome, how can I say this? Is the desired outcome both to limit turnovers and to give you a chance to win games, or are those two different things? Because you have to get to the point, if you switch quarterbacks and you limit the turnovers, that it does give you a better chance to win games with whoever that quarterback is, not named Jeff Sims. Does the answer to the desired outcome question have to be the same for you? Does that make sense?
It does. There's a relationship between the amount of turnovers that Nebraska.
Yeah, because you have to know what that answer is. Because I'm guessing, right, Sam, but the way you worded that, and my question back to you, that's the conundrum that he had. I think that's the difference between Irvin and Grant and Sims and the number 2 quarterback. How closely related is okay, let's say we limit the turnovers. Are we still, does that automatically give us a better chance to win with the new guy? Because the new guy, whomever that is, still has to be able to account for all the explosive plays that Sims was making, which has been the bulk of your offense. That's the answer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the challenge that you have ahead. Jeff Sims is not, what I would say is Harburg is not really a stylistic contrast to Sims. So if you, for example, had I don't even know how to, a thrower on the bench, a guy that can come in and maybe is limited in a couple of ways, but as a Ron Kellogg, who was a contrast to Tommy Armstrong or a Noah Vedral, then maybe there's some resonance there, because they're like, look, we're going to go and we're going to run in this other kind of offense, and we're going to limit our ball handling and this other thing. But the reality is Harburg's going to run probably fewer plays than Sims, and they will probably involve more ball handling. And if you watched the game on Saturday, and you guys did, but if fans did, they noticed that, I think it was Harburg's first throw, was basically he got hit and the ball went up in the air. And I mean, again, if you want to play him, that's fine. But to do right by that kid, you have to give him a chance to make mistakes, because unlike Sims, he hasn't played 37 games. He's played 1. And so what would be fair to him would be to give him a full chance to work through mistakes, make plays, all those things. If you're just sending him out there to maintain rhetorical consistency based on something you said about Anthony Grant, then I don't think you're doing right by anybody. And so, yes, there is a relationship between turnovers and winning. And there does come a point where Sims would turn the ball over just too many times. But simultaneously, what can you do to reduce those turnovers? How can you help Sims? That's what coaching is. You have to figure out how to help your players and your team. It's not just, let's just put a different guy in there,
Yeah. Sam, do you think that Jeff Sims, talent-wise, gives Nebraska the best chance to win? Let's take the turn. Like, you think he's the best quarterback in the room, right?
I don't have to think that. They thought that before the season, and the only thing that would change that is the drop snap.
Okay.
So they thought that.
So we'll start there, that they think that Jeff Sims gives them the best chance to win. So if that's true, and the point of putting Haarberg in, whether it's for a series or a quarter or whatever it is to hold him accountable to the things he's not currently doing well, then you don't really have to believe that Haarberg's the answer, because it's just about holding Sims accountable. Isn't there some value in that still?
Well, that's such a large question in a sense. Like, yeah, there's value in it. Absolutely. And if you have a quarterback, you have a backup quarterback who understands that, and you have a team that understands that, of like, let's just take him out for a minute and let him see it. As they'll say that. We just want to take him out for a drive and let him see it. They'll say that, but they didn't do that in the game against Colorado. They did pull Sims out when he was trying to run back into the game, and maybe that was the opportunity, because he was banged up, to kind of let him just watch the game and maybe get things under his feet a little bit, so on and so forth. Maybe that served as that opportunity. Yeah, there's always that possibility that you can do that. It asks a lot of the backup quarterback. We just need you to know that the reason that you're out on the field is so that we can hold the person accountable who's in front of you, and eventually they're going to come back out here and replace you if you don't do something. If you're not Steve Young, that's a difficult position to put a backup in, and I understand that. And again, these are good conversations, because I imagine these are the kinds of conversations that the head coach and the offensive coordinator are having. I would just say again that, like, I understand. It would be easier for Matt Rhule to say, I shouldn't have said what I said about Anthony Grant, than to go through this entire, long process of, because I said this and I did this and I did this and I did this, now Sims must sit, that kind of thing.
That's Sam McKewon.
That's a lot.
There's a lot in there, and I'm sure we're going to
appreciate you carrying the rest of the show. So.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're going to unpack a lot of what Sam said, I think, the rest of the day.
And he lets us ask him hard questions.
I appreciate that. Sam, we will talk to you again next week, all right?
Oh, thanks, Sam. I thought you hung up. I take the compliment back.
I'm here. You guys are great. Take care.
All right.
More Benning and Lulla coming up next.
The show will be back in 5 minutes. The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
I mean, losing is tough, period. But we as a team, we just got to go back to the drawing board, and just come out and face adversity for the next game, And it's just we just got to stay together. We're gonna fix a lot of things, and we're gonna come out good next week.
Something that always helps me come out good in the morning is the Beanery Coffee. You got to get out to one of their 4 locations, Gretna, Papillion, Ashland. New location on 168th and Giles will be opening up in October. They roast their own coffee, locally owned and operated. They got hot coffee, iced coffee, specialty frozen drinks, breakfast sandwiches, muffins, the whole deal. Make sure you go check out our friends at the Beanery, serving people coffee. Speaking of friends, we got some friends waiting for us on the phone lines, the Warhorse Sportsbook phone lines. Looks like we've got Mike up first, wanting to talk about some high school football. What do we got, Mike?
Shane not knowing that when you use ing, you can drop the E, so it'd just be HATING. But that's neither here nor there.
It's all
Mike,
good. What do you got, Mike?
What's up, buddy?
Hey, Ravi. Hey, Damon. How are you guys?
Good. What's up?
Good. Well, I want to say, first off, Ravi, really enjoy having you on the show. I think you bring a lot to it, and I appreciate the kind of level approach that both of you guys have. It actually helps me personally. So,
well, thank you, Mike. We appreciate that.
Especially, when you look at Nebraska, in terms of, people on the outside, they don't know what's going on in there. And, personally, I trust these coaches to do what's best for the team. And really, as long as the team feels that way, that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, yeah, sometimes quarterbacks drop snaps. I get it. The one thing I'll say, Jeff needs to get down on that darn ball instead of trying to pick it up.
Right.
I mean, let's retain possession. But anyway, we'll see how it plays out, how they go from here. I'm obviously rooting for them. But one thing I wanted to talk about too is, so a few weeks ago, I just get really tired of people just wanting to make a definitive statement about others, thinking they know those people. Jim Rose, and I hate to even bring up his name, and he has a show. I mean, personally, I didn't even listen on the radio when he was announcing Husker games back in the day. So, because I couldn't handle the guy, but he came on and he attacked the families of 3 Lincoln East players, Jeter, Joey, Troy. My son has played with those boys since he was young. I know those families really well. And this guy went on there, went at them about the whole Legion thing. He had no idea what he was talking about. And he made statements about them that were completely wrong. Came on, made a lame, half-hearted, apology. That guy is a joke. Okay. If you don't know what you're talking about, keep your mouth shut. So that's my message to him. Now, last thing, I'll ask Ravi this. Ravi, if you have a player, let's say he's on a top 10 team in the state, okay, and he's the best two-way player, but not only that, he's, let's say it's a middling team, top, 10, maybe 6, 7 ranked team.
Okay.
He's the best two-way player for them, but then he's also their best, he's a difference maker on special teams.
Okay.
At the end of the year, and World-Herald comes out, he's probably going to be maybe all-state, right?
Sure.
Somebody like that, right? So if you have that player and he plays for the best team in the state and the best team, and it ain't even close.
Yep.
What do you call that guy?
I call him the best.
Benning.
I call him the best player in the state. That's what I call him.
The best player in the state. Okay. My son, who played high school football, saw the list on, I think it was on 3, read through, I think it was 8 names before he got to Caleb, and he turned to me and he said, "This list is trash."
There's
certainly
not 8 better players in the state. I can tell you that.
So,
Mike, I listen. I appreciate it, because I don't. I try not to love on him too much, and I know I do him a disservice.
That's what I'm here for, is to just let everybody know what Damon wants.
He continually does it against the best, right? I heard. I just got to say this and get this out. This aggravated me to no end going into the Bellevue West game, and it's no disrespect to Isaiah McMorris, because he's a great player. I think he's clearly their best player. But I kept hearing he's been out 2 weeks, how much of an impact can he have? And I'm like, listen, first of all, the kid's a competitor. He's a great player. But you guys do realize I had a kid that missed 12 weeks of contact and
had zero conditioning.
Zero conditioning.
Yeah.
And everybody said, oh, he's slow. He can't do this. All he did was make plays, right? So
2 picks and 14 catches in state championship.
It's stuck in his craw all season and all off season, right? And I think this is without going through that, Mike, I don't think he would be off to the kind of start he is, but he does, it is personal to him. And I'm glad finally that somebody that is as good natured as he is does take it personal, because it's definitely personal.
Well, and it should be, because, you know, you just get people who want to be negative.
Yeah. Oh,
and
man.
I'm not.
And it's more about me than it is him, which aggravates me. Like, it's okay to, you may not like my delivery or whatever, but like, I don't know, man. Hard to knock the kid.
Yeah, I don't be negative on kids. You know, I mean, unless they are out there committing, felonies. Let's keep it in perspective here and just let kids be kids. Let them go do what they do and give them kudos when they deserve it. And he's earned it. So
I appreciate that, buddy.
Mike, we appreciate the call.
You bet. Yep. Thanks, guys.
Let's stick with high school football and get Cody here on the line. Cody, what do you got for us?
Good morning, gentlemen.
What's up, Cody?
Well, first off, I'll start with what I just asked Shane. Does anyone have like a monitor or a vibe check? Is Sauter okay today? And he's got a big game tonight. We checking in on him.
Hey, listen, my dude, he woke up with the nerves. All he talked about on Friday when he walked in is how he can't wait to lay on his new couch that was delivered to watch this game.
Oh, I know. Did he get his projector working?
He did. Yeah, he sent me a picture of it yesterday.
He got it working.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to start off with my bold predictions. This is a positivity, Cody. Nebraska's winning the West, because who in the West is looking good at all?
It looks doable.
Yeah. There's nobody in the West that scares you.
My second bold prediction is what I just texted you, Damon, and that is Jonathan Smith will be the new Michigan State coach.
Well, we haven't got to Mel Tucker yet. How about that? Woo-wee. And we kind of joked some months ago that Smith was, because Oregon State was my dark horse in the Pac-12. He's the best coach of that huge coaching hiring year in 17-18.
I mean, he's one of the only ones left.
Yeah, for real, Robbie. And then just a couple quick things. Just a little positivity is, how cool is it? Fedoni, I know it was in the final months. Fedoni got himself a touchdown. Like, everyone wants to talk about how crappy of a game that was. Let's talk about the comeback for Fedoni after the last 2 years he's been through.
Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely, Cody.
And then leading the country in sacks, positivity.
True.
And final is a little bit, if you can hit on these two things. One, how much of Nebraska is what Shane Falco explained as in sinking sand, where they're trying too hard to do too much and just need to get back to intangibles? And second, can you break down what happened at the end of Gretna versus Prep? Because I still have.
I can't. That game was unbelievable. Gretna's got a huge one. Does Gretna have Millard South this week?
Cody, we appreciate the call there. I'd have to check on that one. I haven't looked at the high school
I think
schedule
Gretna
yet.
may have Millard South.
I usually don't start figuring out where I'm going on Fridays until about Wednesday. So,
well, we got your alma mater, but have you seen us too much?
It's not that I've seen you too much. I think I've seen too much of Millard North at this point. Because listen, if Millard South goes 56 on them, I don't want to know what you guys are going to do. If I'm being honest,
there's a lot in that game.
I'm sure there is. Brian, hang on here. We've got our friend coming up next from the buffsbeat.com. Well, I don't know if we can call him a friend. We'll see how this conversation goes. Jeff Hauser from buffbeats.com coming up next on Benning and Lulla.
The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute.
First down and goal to go from the 8-yard line. There's a shotgun snap taken by Shedeur, giving the end around, running at the 10-yard line, coming upfield. Dawson into the end zone. Touchdown, Colorado.
The show will be back in 30 seconds.
First down.
Hurrdat Sports presents The Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
First down and goal to go from the 8-yard line. There's a shotgun snap taken by Shedeur, giving the end around, running at the 10-yard line, cutting upfield. Dawson into the end zone. Touchdown, Colorado on a reverse. Savion Washington, a tackle, got down and blew up a defender at the 2-yard line so that Dawson can waltz on in.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Jeff Hauser of BuffsBeat.com. Jeff, how are you this morning? Thanks for joining us.
Anytime. It's been quite a while, so I'm definitely glad to be back on with you guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, you definitely, you're probably in better spirits over there than we are out here. Watching that game play out, obviously, Colorado pulls away late, but it's 13-7 in the third quarter. As you're watching that take place, what do you think happened that led it from 13-7 to finishing up 36-14? Was it the dam kind of finally just broke on the Nebraska defense? Was it adjustments that Colorado made, or something else entirely?
It was just execution on Colorado's side, because up to that point, neither team looked very good at all. Colorado wasn't executing properly. Shedeur, kudos to the Nebraska secondary, because they kept Shedeur in check for most of that game, to where, he went through his reads. He tried to scan the field, and there was nothing. There's absolutely nothing for him to find. So that's why they were able to get sacks. They were able to get pressure, and it wasn't so easy for them. But as the game wore on, it became a slugfest, and Colorado rattled off a couple of scores there in the fourth quarter that were just key. And it's high times in Boulder, and we're celebrating.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. But it's good to see that Deion Sanders has come in here and done all the right things amid all the criticism. But I mean, make no mistake about it. I think you give Nebraska 1 or 2 more years under Matt Rhule, he's really going to try and figure things out, get the right recruiting class, and they're going to be a dangerous team as well.
Jeff, it's interesting because I'm kind of looking at I always watch the pressers, and it's hard. I mean, just because Colorado has been everywhere. You get the sense, though, them handling success may not be as difficult as we thought, because dare say they expected to be here at this point, because they certainly didn't seem to have many problems moving on from TCU. Although people forget their first 24 plays went for 50 yards. So maybe there was a little bit of a hangover there, but they appear to be embracing this full tilt.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and a lot of this goes back to the national narrative that, Prime comes in and it's an entire roster flip. He's bringing over 80 guys, most of them from the transfer portal, and only 9 kids stayed on the roster from last year. So it was kind of an unknown. I mean, we go into TCU, and, even at Media Day for the Big 12, I was asking Sonny Dykes, like, what do you expect from this roster? And it was a lot of unknowns. He's saying that they're breaking down multiple films from Jackson State. You got some from Kent State, being that Sean Lewis was there, a little bit of Alabama mixed in for Charles Kelly on the defensive side. So I think that for Colorado, they expected this, knowing the talent that they got, because on the national side of things, everyone wanted to believe that this roster was horrible. We heard that going into the season, and that Colorado wasn't going to win more than 3 games. And it's just astounding if you look at the roster from top to bottom, the 4- and 5-star guys and all the talent that Deion and his staff were bringing in. I don't know how anyone on that side of things, how far the despair, it was just a huge gap, right? Because you had all the national folks saying that, well, this is a horrible team, but then you have us who are covering the team looking at things like, man, we're going to shock the world. Like, this is astounding that he's getting all these kids in here all at the same time to build really an all-star roster.
It's interesting, Jeff, because top to bottom, like if you just did like an average star ranking, it's not like daunting, right? But the high end is really high end, and the bottom is closer to the middle in terms of talent. How much credit should the coaching staff get?
Oh, I think a lot, because Deion built really good coaches around him. I mean, Sean Lewis came in after being the head coach of Kent State and took an OC job. And then you had Charles Kelly come over from Alabama. So those two are really the driving force of most of this. But then you have position guys like Nick Williams, who's absolutely fantastic, who came over from being in the SEC. And you have...
I'm looking at your analysts. I mean, yeah, a couple of former NFL guys that are pretty good at their craft, especially defensively.
Well, and a lot of those guys are really hands-off when it comes to game day. Like Pat Shurmur's around campus, but he's more of an analyst just watching film. And really, Mike Zimmer is still involved. He was involved when Deion was at Jackson State, but more so, they're really hands-off on the game day side of things. But it's just it's good to see that Deion has built a staff with good quality coaches who are able to diagnose things in game. And I think that that's something that Colorado hasn't had in a very long time. I mean, Carl Durrell didn't bring anything that was so magical. And I often wonder if he was really the best hire for Colorado mid-COVID. So you had Mel Tucker leave, which now we see is not working out so well for Michigan State. But just the history of coaches that have kind of cycled through. Mike McIntyre put up a pretty good job, but still he was not that next level guy that we see Deion Sanders as right now. But we're a little reserved because I had Colorado in the non-conference winning all 3 of these games. So I figured TCU, they're losing 40% of their team, and there's a whole bunch of turnover. You don't have Duggan, you don't have Johnson. So I thought Colorado would keep that close. They did. They won. Nebraska, they're still making adjustments with Matt Rhule. Big rivalry game at home. I figured they would pull that out, and it would be closer than what it was. It wasn't. This Colorado State game is going to be still a rivalry, but it's not as hyped as it was in the past. So with going into this game, I think that they do go 3-0 going into that huge matchup with Oregon at Autzen in week 4, and then you have USC coming back home in week 5. So the 2 games to open the Pac-12 side of things are going to be very key for Colorado to see where they're at from a progression standpoint, and really they're the litmus test for them to start out early this season.
Yeah, and outside of, I guess you'd say, Stanford, the Pac-12 has a chance to be pretty good.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for the biggest surprise of all of them is Washington State, just how they've come into the season and notched both wins early and still can't find a conference to save their lives for next year. So, yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 is going to be really good. There's going to be, I mean, credit to what Shedeur Sanders has done early in his FBS side of his career, because he's going to be one of the passers in this Pac-12 that, alongside Caleb Williams and Bo Nix, that they really talk about.
Yeah, enjoy Shedeur for the next year, because I think that's about all he'll be in Boulder, unless the NIL is just that good. He doesn't strike me as the type of guy that needs money either. You maybe one and done for old Shedeur in Boulder.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't one and done for Shedeur, but I mean, you never know. You never really know the side of things. He's got his dad there. I know that he is chasing NFL dreams, but he also has a pretty good best friend in Travis Hunter, and he might stay. I think the jury's still out on what he's going to do, but this year is going to be really good for him. He is a next level quarterback. When we talk about his mentors, and it's Brady and Manning, and I mean, I know he hasn't been good as of late, but Russell Wilson and Geno Smith, those are the 4 guys that he's been working with in the last year. That's crazy.
Jeff, I'm curious. Obviously, a lot of praise and attention to Colorado through the first couple games. Colorado State kind of gives them, not that you can look past them, but a little bit of a break before they really head into the gauntlet of the
game day going for the rivalry. I'm like, oh gosh.
A little bit of a break before you get into the gauntlet of the Pac-12 schedule. What are some areas that you've seen from Colorado that you'd like to see them maybe clean up before they head into that really difficult stretch? They go at Oregon, USC at home, you mentioned.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's no doubt that the run defense has to really step it up a little bit further, just to see what happened in the TCU game. And a lot of those mistakes that happened in Fort Worth carried over to this game over the weekend in Boulder. They can't allow the chunks of yards. I mean, even the broken down play with Jeff Sims going down the sideline and in for the score, that was just a complete breakdown, not only in awareness, but communication between the defense. They've got to get better with that. But I kind of suspected that the breakdown for them was more so the Heat down in Fort Worth. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they put it all together on the defensive side still.
Yeah. That's Jeff Hauser from BuffsBeat.com. Jeff, we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it.
All righty. Coming up next, we will kick off hour number 3 with getting back to some of the things that Sam was talking about and some questions that it spurred on in my head. That's coming up on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes.
Thomas with the block.
Garoppolo, shotgun snap, fires the slant. It's caught, Myers at the goal line. He leads in. Extra point will take the lead here in Denver.
Got 3 receivers right, 1 to the left. Aaron Jones to the left side of the quarterback in the backfield.
Extra point will take the lead here in Denver.
Got 3 receivers right, 1 to the left. Aaron Jones to the left side of the quarterback in the backfield. Snapped it up.
The Cowboys defender on the right sideline, it is Noah.
Here in Denver.
Got 3 receivers right, 1 to the left.
Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Field goal from the left hash. And that ball is mishandled. Blocked and picked up by the Cowboys defender on the right sideline. It is Noah Egan-Benabaki, and he runs it in for a touchdown for Dallas.
It was Wanye.
The catch, 25-20, cutting right. He's gone to the house. Touchdown, Green Bay.
We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Field goal from the left hash. And that ball is mishandled. Blocked and picked up by the Cowboys defender on the right sideline. It is Noah Egan-Benabaki, and he runs it in for a touchdown for Dallas.
It was Wanye Thomas with the block.
Garoppolo, shotgun snap, fires the slant. It's caught, Myers at the goal line. He leads in. Touchdown Raiders. Jacoby Myers on the slant with his second touchdown grab in his silver and black debut. And the Raiders with an extra point will take the lead here in Denver.
Got 3 receivers right, 1 to the left. Aaron Jones to the left side of the quarterback in the backfield. Snap to left, dumps it over the middle. Aaron Jones makes the catch. 25-20, cutting right. He's gone to the house. Touchdown, Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones, electrifying 35-yard touchdown reception. Wow.
All right, kicking off hour number 3 on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Going to get into some NFL stuff here, but before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends over at Dingman's.
Oh, I love Dingman's.
I know you
do. A lot
do.
of great locations, family owned and operated. Really super easy website to negotiate to at dingmans.com. Can repair all types of vehicles from, Ravi's RAV4 to
I don't own that thing. I don't claim that thing.
My Volkswagen. So from V-dubs to whatever, Dingman's has got you covered. Super great customer service. And I also like my favorite, and because people that know me know, all in on the community, right? So their give back program is tops. So stopping out and see my friends at Dingman's. Shane, thank you.
I'm sure you could.
I'm sure.
I'm sure you could lease one, Robbie.
Yeah,
really
you're still on cloud 9 from your sorry Raiders eking one out. I was hoping they lost that game yesterday so bad, but it's okay.
Why you want the Broncos to be?
Well, I didn't want to be the only guy whose team didn't win.
Yeah,
I think the
misery loves company. I wanted somebody to be friends with me.
Well, I can't
Let's
imagine
be friends and do things together.
I can't imagine our friend out of breath Brian is miserable after his Cowboys won in
that was a tail kicking
resounding fashion last night. Brian, how are you doing this morning?
Man, I'm doing great. I like stopping, putting the Giants in the mud hole. You know what I'm talking about, putting that boot up to what. I like that. That I was expecting the defense to play good, but I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, I feel sorry for that man. He got abused so bad, I thought they were going to take him away from the Giants family and adopt him to a family from the abuse he took that game. That's how bad I thought it was.
7 sacks, like, 7.
I am very enthused for this season this year with that defense. Yeah, I'm very enthused. It's going to be tough to move the ball on them. I believe we're going to win the NFC East this year because, you can't win it 2 years in a row. Not in the NFC East.
How about running it more? How about running it more than you threw it? Maybe McCarthy was serious about running the football.
Well,
I know you had some concerns, right, going last week.
The offensive line, the offense was designed to be that way. And had all these offensive coordinators come in and kind of try to change what they are. They're meant to maul defensive line, so let them go ahead and eat. Go ahead, chew them up. I like that. Hit them with that physical offensive line, and that defense will keep them from scoring. If you score 15 points on them this month, it'll be amazing. That's what I'm feeling right now. That's what I'm feeling.
If Shay said, "Wow."
Before I get with the Corn Huskers, I remember I told my mom, I said, hey, I asked the Almighty for patience. She laughed at me. She said, when you ask for that, you get kids.
Yeah. You don't get exact patience. You get things to practice patience.
You see the kid. So that's what we got to do with Nebraska. It looks real bad. You're just gonna have to stick to it. Don't be trying to throw people away like that. You can't do your kids like that. I know they're not your kids, but you can't just throw somebody away after they make mistakes. That's what we're too quick to do.
Yeah,
we're all upset.
There's a reason that coaches would make for lousy fans, and fans typically make for lousy coaches. They think polar opposites.
Yeah, I knew where your feeling was going to be before you even got on the radio. I'm like, you can't make it personal. They're just going through a rough stretch. If you really are a fan of the team, you've been sticking through all these losses so far. You might as well keep on doing it. You ain't got nowhere else to go.
Yeah, and it's not even so much me being a fan of the team as much as I just like to kind of give you where I think the coaches' heads are with what they're weighing, right? Because I think the more that you can put yourself into that context, the more you can make sense out of what's happening.
I knew as bad as Sims was looking and wanted to pull, I'm like, you can't really do that. It's only game 2. And then what kind of message are you sending to your team? You put in all this work for me in the all season, and as soon as you mess up under the bright lights, I'm going to be different. No, you can't really do that. So, hey, we got to stick in there for people. I know it's going to be tough, but hey, that's what it is.
Appreciate
have a good day, fellas.
Thanks, B. And I know everybody's going to give me the Anthony Grant example. I can't speak with 100% certainty with how AG handled it or how he didn't or not. Like,
sure.
I know
there's other factors.
I know maybe. Like I know
there's possibly.
Yeah, I know what the optics say.
Right. Well,
so I'm not trying to land that plane. Like
I think so.
It can't be that easy.
So let's kind of bounce off of what Brian said and going back a little bit to what Sam said as well back in the 8 o'clock hour. I agree that the comparison between Grant and Sims can be low-hanging fruit. But here's some things that I kind of want to at least bounce off of you to see where your head's at. Because I understand I look at it differently than you do, and the coaches look at it differently than I do. But if I'm watching this team and trying to think about logical consistency and things like that in terms of coaching, because I've never coached football, but I have coached quite extensively in the past. If I'm looking at what Anthony, assuming there's no outside factors like you were talking about, okay, and we don't know. If I'm looking at the Anthony Grant fumble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota made a play and made Anthony Grant fumble.
Right.
Right? Is that fair?
100%.
Jeff Sims errors have largely been unforced.
Right.
That's where I have an issue. Because if you're about controlling what you can control and ownership and holding people accountable, listen, does Anthony Grant still need to hold on to that football? Yeah, he does. But somebody made him drop the football, right? That's where I start to have this conversation about Jeff Sims saying, okay, a lot of this is self-inflicted. A lot of this is in your control. You're making the mistakes before the defense does anything to you. How much does that factor into looking at those two situations, or just even if you want to just keep it to Jeff Sims' situation?
Okay, so let me give you both sides, and you got to remember,
is that a fair question?
Yeah, you don't need my validation, no.
I want to make sure, because I do come from a more emotional standpoint, so I want to make sure.
But it's sometimes it's good balance, right?
Like, that I'm thinking through rationally.
Yeah, sometimes I want to fly off the hinges, and I'm sure I will at some point.
Sure,
right? I mean, those are those epic meltdowns that people laugh at that I have sometimes. But I asked this question last week. I asked it the week before. Would you rather be the person that knows it's on them and they have their own chance to fix it, or would you rather be the person that didn't have any control in the outcome? And it's like, let's just say, again, the example I gave last week was, would you rather just be overmatched from start to finish?
Yeah.
And be like, hey, man, I did my best, but I guess my best wasn't good enough. That's a line in the song somewhere. I did my best, but I guess my best wasn't good.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's old, man. I don't know. My mom would know the song. I think it's Just Once. Just Once or something. Anyway, or would you rather be the guy that or gal that has continually made mistakes, but they're your own mistakes? Some people can lose confidence when they can't get right. It's like, man, I always screw up.
Yeah.
Right. And they're in their own heads. Some people rather like that and know, man, if I just do blank,
if I can clean it up.
Or would you rather be overmatched? Because that's the difference. That's the example.
So
that's the example between a Jeezy off the Heezy, Anthony Grant, and Jeff Sims. If you're Jeff Sims, you're probably thinking that's on me. That's not an ability thing. I have to lock in. Or would you rather be Anthony Grant and be like, man, I couldn't help it?
It's fair.
That's the reality of the discussion, though. That's why I don't think it's not as like linear as we want to make it.
And I agree about that. It's not
you
as
feel me? Like, so
it's not as a direct correlation as we want to make it, right?
So the key here is if you've done something for as long as this staff has, what you don't want to do is give up on your tutelage.
Sure.
That's just not what they do, right? It's like you have to, the key for them is, because you don't want to give up on your teachings because you know it works.
Right.
So there's that certain amount of stuff that goes into, You still want teachers to teach your kids, even though sometimes their acumen isn't what everybody else is. The key for this staff has got to be, at what point are you reaching diminishing returns?
Well, and at what point are some of the things you're teaching, such as accountability, taking ownership, taking care of the football, those are all things we've heard this staff talk about in terms of what they teach. At what point does continuing to have faith in a guy who is not doing those things causing problems in terms of what you're teaching everybody else?
Okay, but did you remember the question that I asked Sam?
What's that?
So, and like the Cliff Notes version is, all right, let's say you make the change at quarterback. Let's go E plus R equals O. My desired outcome is this. My desired outcome is to put our team in a position to win more games. Let's say that's your outcome.
Sure.
Okay. If that's the case, does the change at quarterback, which may or may not limit the turnovers,
yes,
does it still?
It almost certainly limits the offense in terms of what you want to call.
It may.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like their play. I don't know. Right. That's a variable.
I would guess, but
okay. Yeah. That's a variable, right? For this example.
Yeah.
Does that help me better get to my desired outcome?
So my question is, what if your desired outcome is smaller than win more games?
Okay. What is it?
What if your desired outcome is to hold Jeff Sims accountable because that's something you care about?
Now, for me, that would be interesting because you're going to spare the rod to spoil the child. Like, why would you make it a singular entity?
Because you're holding everybody else accountable. Let's say it's not just Jeff Sims. Let's say your desired outcome is to have guys take ownership for their controllable mistakes.
Okay.
Like your overall team desired outcome is take ownership for the things we can control. Could Jeff Sims control a lot of the things that happened on Saturday?
1,000%.
So if that's your desired outcome, then one of the things you can do, because one of the only things you can do in terms of holding players accountable if they continue to make the same mistakes is to take away playing time. It's one of the only things you have as a coach to take away that players want.
So where would you draw the line? Would you stop it at left tackle? Would you stop it at left guard? Would you stop it at quarterback?
Well, that's the question, right? Because
I'm just
no, I get what you're saying, because everybody wants to seem to stop it at quarterback. Because listen, there's guys on the line, and we've talked about it, that you're like, hey, not playing very well right now. You know, we've said Jeff Sims a million times. Okay, let's say Turner Corcoran.
Like there's a reason I use 69 on my now or never, however I worded those questions, where I put him on that list.
Yeah.
And I didn't use Bryce Benhart.
Yeah.
Right. Two popular whipping boys, but it's possible. Like, look no further than Bryce Benhart. If you just want to resign yourself to the fact that, oh man, it's always been this way, so it always will be, you could make the case that Bryce Benhart is playing the best football of.
Yeah, I haven't had an issue with Bryce Benhart at all.
And he's far from perfect, but I'm just saying
he's doing his job.
So at what point is the lesson when you're building accountability? Are you trying to remove this? If I want to build accountability, am I going to take away the things that you're not good at in hopes that you get some false sense of security on where you're really at?
And in that sense,
if you can't shoot, I'm not going to say, hey, defenders, don't close out on him.
Right. In practice, right?
Yeah, I'm just not.
Yes. Well, that's the question with Jeff Sims, right? Are you going to pare down the playbook to where he feels
it's not the
comfortable?
Playbook. Why do we keep saying that? It's goddamn snaps. What are you going to say?
But that's what I mean.
Run the ball back to him and hand it to him?
No, that's what I mean, though, right?
You got to get snaps.
So if you can't change the game plan because
do you really think Jeff Sims is not capable of getting snaps?
I don't think he's not capable. I think he didn't do it.
Okay, so if
a guy is not doing something he is capable of doing,
okay,
then you have to hold him accountable.
But you know he's capable of receiving snaps, my man.
Okay, but if he's not doing it, you still have to hold him accountable.
Okay, but it wasn't the problem last week.
No, it wasn't.
So if you're continuing to grow in some areas and still have issues in others, at what point do you remove yourself of the issue? You have to pit. I'm giving you the answer to the test.
Okay.
You have to pit it against. If you do that, yes, you're punishing Jeff Sims and making him.
I'm not trying to use the word punish, but I know what you mean.
Well, no, see, I use punish different than you do, or than most people. See, sometimes
consequences. I use consequences.
People like to enact punishment, and it doesn't change the behavior.
Right.
That's
you want it to be corrective, not punitive.
Yeah, it's not a punitive is the word I was going to do. See, punishment doesn't. If punishment works, it's not punitive.
It's corrective.
If it changes the behavior,
right?
You can call it what you want.
That's why I use consequences.
Okay,
I want
that's
corrective
cool.
consequences rather than punitive.
Totally cool. Totally cool. Yeah. So while we're busy focusing on making sure we get our pound of flesh from Sims and he's held accountable and there's consequences, what does that tell the rest of my team? Now, think about the other guys. Mm-hmm. Can I do that and still instill in them that I'm giving them the best chance to have success on Saturdays? That's what you better see. That's the relationship that we don't know, because you know who you can't fool? You can't fool players. So you have to trust that Coach Rhule and that staff know, if I do this, then this will happen. This is based on my relationship and my feel for this team. So if your desired outcome is to have consequences for Jeff Sims, at what cost will it be for the rest of my team that I'm not going to mortgage their future for potential success by doing this? See, whatever that Venn diagram looks like will let you know the decision you have to do. And hear my heart. I'm not saying if you bench Sims, you cannot win games. What I'm telling you is when you look at the totality of how they've moved the football this season, you have to know that those players will go into that game believing that they can win while you're giving your other guy the consequences. So far, there has been nothing to show me that Nebraska can move the ball without Jeff Sims. So why do I go back to? You have to coach yourself into having options. It is up to them, the staff, Sat, Rhule, Raiola, McGuire. Those guys have to come together and say, hey, listen, if we're going to protect the investment, these are the changes we have to make. Now, can they do that in a week? We shall see. But that's why they paid those guys. It's not a singular desired thing, because there's effects for doing that. How do we know if you remove Sims from the equation, are you worsening the morale? Shane, is worsening a word?
Yes.
Okay. Worsening the morale of going into a game feeling like you have a chance to win. What, that guy was voted captain. What if he believes that they're their guy and they're just encouraging him to get better?
So what's the other side of that coin, though, right?
That's what the counterpoint is. Give me the yang.
So the yang on that is, okay, if you're holding everyone else accountable, if you're holding Anthony Grant accountable, if you're holding,
do we know how Anthony Grant is? Okay, so you got to stop using that as an example.
There's variables there that we don't know.
Okay,
that's with Jeff Sims and with Anthony Grant, right? Like there's variables there we don't know. So whether it's Anthony Grant or whoever else,
Ravi Lulla,
if there's other people on the team,
that thing for like 6 a carry, break them down.
Not anymore. If you
got one good trap in you, though.
Oh yeah. I'll hit that right in the middle there. Boom.
Okay, Madden. R.I.P.
If you're holding everybody else on the team accountable,
how do we know that Sims isn't being held accountable?
If you're not holding him accountable
because he's playing so we assume he's not.
I'm not saying that they're not doing other things, but listen, playing time is the biggest thing to a player that you can have leverage over them with.
Okay.
It is. It just is.
Okay.
And so if you're not holding him accountable with playing time and you're saying, hey, we care about taking care of the football, we care about ownership, we care about there's consequences to not holding up your end of the bargain.
Okay.
Right? On things you can control. What does it say to the team?
I don't know.
If you don't hold one guy accountable,
I don't know.
And everybody else is.
I don't know the answer to that question.
See, that's the other side of the coin that you're talking about. Because it's entirely possible that everybody is bought in on Jeff Sims, coaches, players, everybody. And you're like, oh, well, so if I make a mistake, I'm going to get yanked out. Maybe it's not one mistake, though. It's not like Jeff Sims threw one bad pass or he had one bobbled snap or whatever.
Yeah.
As much of my concern about Saturday wasn't just the bobbled snaps. It's okay. First time, just drops it. There's no motion on that first one. It's on there. They're on the 31-yard line. Comes right back to him. He's looking upfield. He just misses it. But then he doesn't dive on it. He tries to pick it up and make a play.
Which, by the way, I didn't have as big an issue at I've told people 1,000 times, hey man, just get on the football, right? So it's like police work. It's like bad police work sometimes. When we want something to be true, that's how we skew the evidence. That's how we look at the evidence. Because we want to poke, we want to continue to poke and prod at Jeff Sims. We say, man, you should have dove on the ball. How many times a game when a ball's on the carpet do you want the guy to have dove for it?
Me personally, most of the time.
Yeah, let's not my point is I just want to just isolate Jeff Sims like he's the only one that doesn't have a sense of urgency in terms of getting on a goddamn football.
No, but if you saw the same thing with Lindenmeyer, as soon as he realized there's an issue, boom, he gets on the ball.
Yeah.
Doesn't try and pick it up, doesn't try and make a play, boom, gets on the ball.
Yeah, but have you seen quarterbacks pick up a drop?
They have, and sometimes it works.
Yeah, you just saw flipping Caleb Williams in week 1.
Well, Jeff Sims isn't Caleb Williams.
No, see, you're not afforded that luxury. You're not going to do that to me. What I'm telling you is in the moment, Jeff Sims is not saying, I'm not Caleb Williams. I'm not going to try to do what he did. That's what we do because we're on the outside looking in. What I'm telling you is a quarterback that drops a snap inevitably will try to pick it up to make a play. That's what I'm telling you.
I want him to
I know that's
possession.
not popular.
I want him to
cool to put the guy on a video and say he should have dove on the ball. But the reality is how many times does that really happen? We've seen it time and time again. I saw a snap hit Patrick Mahomes in the shin. That thing rolled around and he threw a 3-yard speed out last year.
Yeah.
Are you going to tell me he's not Patrick Mahomes either? No, that's not my point. My point is quarterbacks will often do that. He was going to scoop it to himself to make a play. I don't think he's trying any less hard or
I don't think he's dogging. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is, okay, first time he tries to pick it up, make a play, they lose a possession.
Okay.
Second time, I would really like to see him dive on it the second time.
Okay, like sense of urgency, like, oh, poop.
No, like we did this before. Like, let me save the possession, right? Because I'm not saying he wasn't trying hard. I think it was maybe trying too hard, right? He was trying to save the play instead of save the possession.
Yeah.
Okay. I need him to save the possession because
you want him to pull a Brock Purdy and
just get on it
and like take it from behind his back against JJ or against Watt, right? That's what you wanted to do.
I just want him to jump on the ball.
TJ, not JJ.
Yeah, JJ's in studio now.
Yeah,
I just want him to jump on the ball.
All right.
Because listen, first time I get it. You're trying to make a play, whatever. Okay. Second time, we've had some turnovers issues at that point. I need you to save possessions.
I just think we're pretty quick to want our pound of flesh without being able to get our minds around big picture. So
to me, it's not a pound. To me, it is the big picture though, because I'm not talking about pound of flesh.
From whose vantage point though?
So from the coaching staff's vantage point.
Okay.
Because if you're not actively showing when we say we want people to take ownership, they need to take ownership.
What if Coach Rhule wants to hold Coach Satterfield accountable?
I'd be totally okay with that.
So what if he's doing that?
I don't know what that looks like.
Well, I mean, we're speculating. Right?
Yeah, we are speculating. We'll do some more speculating coming up next on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 5 minutes.
Ready to throw. Corner blitz coming. Looking right, throwing right. Caught. Marquise Douglas, the big fella. 35-30. Far sideline. 20. He's got a convoy. Just caught in there.
We will be back in 4 minutes.
Touchdown, Florida State.
Low in over in kick. Going to come down to Mackay.
We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Jordan Travis's night is over. He's going to throw. Corner blitz coming. Looking right, throwing right. Caught. Marquise Douglas, the big fella. 35-30. First sideline. 20. He's got a convoy. Just caught in there. Marquise. His third career touchdown. Easy pitch and catch. Rodemaker. Douglas. Touchdown Florida State.
Low in over in kick going to come down to McKay at the 31. He's going to take it and run to the right. 35, 40. Breaks one tackle there. 50 at the numbers. 40, 30. He's got a convoy and he's going to take it all the way for the touchdown. McKay Muse. Almost 70 yards on the punt return.
Here we go. We're back with you here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla, getting into some discussions about, obviously, Jeff Sims, Nebraska, accountability, and we'll jump right back into that. But first, we got to get our friend Jay on the Warhorse.
I'm guessing the last name isn't Rant.
No, I think Jay.
He wants to utilize the Warhorse hotline to go on a rant.
Yeah, at the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Jay, what do you got for us?
I was going to go on a rant, but I've been listening. You know what I mean?
Oh, Lord.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad
thing. Is that
thing.
good or bad? But, like, what do we do? Sometimes people just want to punch me in the face, Jay. I mean, I don't know. Am I making too much sense?
No. I would say this, and I understand your frustration on many levels. And I don't even know if you're frustrated, so please I'm not trying to diagnose or say anything. I would say
I'm cool.
That's what I would say. You are trying to bring logic to an illogical situation. This is fandom. This is fanhood. There is no logic. There is no 1 + 1 = 2. In fanhood, 1 + 1 = 1,000,000. You know what I'm saying? One thing is the worst thing, and the best thing is the greatest thing. So there is no logic there. It's difficult for us to grab a hold to all of the responsible, logical things you are saying, right? And the reason why is because we're fans and our feelings are hurt. So we want to say, you know what I'm saying, the most illogical things ever. Like Jeff Sims can't take a snap and he can't do this, even though the young man is a Division I college quarterback. Has he made mistakes? Yes. Do we bench him? And now I'm talking logic too. I don't know.
I just don't know like how feasible an argument it is to say that he should have picked up a ball when like the guy dropped a throwback pass, for Pete's sakes, picked it up and threw it. Like I just don't know how like and it wasn't Ravi. Like I saw it all weekend. Like why guys are hammering him for not just falling on the ball. Like we're not. This is not realistic. It's just not.
Because if he falls on the ball, then the argument is, why did he pick it up and try to make a play?
Well, he had time. He panicked.
Yeah. So feel me? So there is no in the land of fanhood. There is no room for human error. There's always kids and everyone have to perform at the highest level in the moment that we're all expecting them to. You feel me? And it's no big. I'm not saying again. I fall in the category. I'm sitting there watching the game tight like I'm playing too. You feel me? But in reality, no, that's not what it is. And at this stage, let me say this, and I'm done. If I'm mad at anything, I'm mad at the fact that people can't accept that Deion Sanders is a good football coach. Why does it have to be so many other polarizing situations? Why do we have to bring politics and social, you know what I'm saying, social issues into something as simple as this dude has been playing football at a high level since he was a kid. He's been the man since he was a kid. We watched him put posters on our wall. We watched him achieve at a high level at every single thing he put his into. Why can't we accept that he is also a great motivator of young men? More specifically, he's a great motivator of black men, of young black men. And he's in a situation where all of those attributes can yield him grand results. That doesn't mean that just because he's doing it good over there that we can't do it good over here. That doesn't mean that in order for us to achieve, we have to get a Deion. That's nonsense. What we're building here is a program. I still believe in Coach Rhule. I believe that he's trying to build a program that is sustainable, that lasts longer than just a flash in the pan. And I don't think what Deion is building is a flash in the pan either. I think he is going to have an open door policy to some of the greatest athletes in our country that will go to Colorado because he's just a great coach. And I also believe that Matt Rhule and his staff can build just as an enticing and inviting atmosphere to get those same type of athletes to come to Nebraska, right? Two things can be right at the same time. Deion is kicking butt, and we should all watch and see. And it's going to change the landscape of how we think about college football and pro.
No, I don't know about. I don't know about if it's going to change how I think the rebuild goes. I don't, because I don't know how repetitive this is for somebody without specific skill sets. And I mean that like you're going to have to clone another Deion. That means a guy that can attract people. That means a guy that's going to a program that had 3 Sunday guys that's going to recruit another one in Dylan Edwards. Like, I don't know how repeatable it is.
What Deion is doing is not sustainable to anybody that's not Deion. I'm
right.
not saying that you can't replicate the Deion Sanders because you can't replicate Deion. What I'm saying is what Deion is doing is going to be successful because he's there.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant it was like it speeds up everybody else's clock. Not for the sane, right? If you're irrational, you think it's doable.
No, I'm saying that he's doing what he's doing, and he's going to be successful at what he.
Yeah, 100%. 100. He's won his whole life.
Yes, and what we're doing can be sustainable and successful if we can see it through. What's happening right now is, man, come on, we knew this. We were playing 2 teams. What we hoped was that what Deion was doing at Colorado wouldn't work. What happened was we ran into a Big Ten team that we knew was going to be a challenging game.
Robbie hit it. He hit the nail on the head earlier. He said we just don't like the way that it looks. Some thought we would be 2-2 after 4. Some thought best case scenario we would be 3-1. I think we just don't like the way that it looks.
and it didn't look the way. And that is why we hinge all of this stuff on Mr. Sims. It's because again, he's 6'4", 220. I had high expectation for him.
And we've seen other quarterbacks give programs hope.
Right. So we had expectation for him, and all he did was be human in the moment. And in the next 2 games, and this is going to be crazy, mark my words, the calls are going to change, right? When the dude gets out there and looks 6'4", 220, stretches the field, drops a few dimes, we beat a team that we're supposed to beat by 20 points. All of a sudden now, Jeff is what we thought he was.
I don't know, man. We got to score 28 points first.
We will, and I'm done. But I just wanted to say that, man. I'm good. You feel me?
Yeah. I appreciate the call.
And shout out to Coach Rhule. Coach Rhule. Shout out to Coach Rhule and his staff. You feel me? And a big shout out to what we're not recognizing enough is that defense, bro. Please spend some time on how your boys' defense have shown up.
Yeah.
Week after week, they showed up, bro. When nobody thought they could, they showed up, and the D-line showed up, and the linebackers showed up.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at the defense. The defense gives me hope to say, "Are we good? We can fix it." And I want to see more options.
All right.
Stop playing.
All right, my guy. Thanks, Jay. Ravi, I felt Vesuvius was at a slow bubble. Like, is Mount St. Helens is no longer dormant?
Well, so I just.
By the way, if I ever change my name and go with a fake name on the radio, I'm going with Jay Rant.
Jay Rant.
I love that. That was a great call right there.
Jay Rant.
So here's my problem is I'm not asking for Jeff Sims to be perfect, right? I'm not asking for him not to make any mistakes. When I say he should have jumped on the ball, I'm accepting the fact that he already made the mistake of dropping the snap. At some point, we have to be okay with saying, hey, stop throwing good money after bad, okay? At what point, whether it's with an individual player or with a position group or with an offensive coordinator that maybe we're not so sure about, at what point do you have to say, hey, I was wrong on this. I'm going to stop throwing good money after bad. Because, listen, and I don't know if we're at that point, to be clear. I'm not saying we are. But at some point, if this type of play continues with Jeff Sims, if this type of offensive lack of performance continues with Marcus Satterfield, you have to say to yourself, hey, maybe I missed this one. How do I fix it? Rather than continuing to have the conviction, which sometimes is delusional conviction, of saying, I can fix this. I can make Jeff Sims, because I think a lot of times people look at a quarterback like Jeff Sims and say, hey, look how talented he is. Look how physically skilled he is. I can get something out of him that no one ever else has. Well, maybe it's not actually in there. I thought it was. We had this discussion on the podcast before the season. I thought if you put him in right positions, you can get the best out of Jeff Sims, right? I thought you put Marcus Satterfield in good positions, you can get the best out of Marcus Satterfield.
I'm gonna ask you one question.
Yeah.
What if Coach Rhule is starting with the adults in the room?
How so?
Maybe he's trying to grow his OC, his wide receivers coach, and his running backs coach, and his O-line coach before he zeroes in on one young person. What if that's the case?
We will dig into that as we wrap up the show coming up next on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Things you wanted us to get to from the weekend, but we didn't.
Cleanup on aisle 6.
It's the Sports Cleanup.
As we wrap up the show here on a Monday, it's time for the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup. And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of stuff that happened this weekend that we just aren't even going to be able to touch today. I have a feeling a lot of these discussions are going to spill over into tomorrow, and maybe we have to devote the Dish and Ish podcast this week to some of them as well, where we have a little bit more space to run.
I got to get, before we get to Random Mike here real quick, one of my favorite people in America. I want to listen. I want to read this to you. Okay. Listening to your segment with Sam. I really struggle with seeing a path forward with Satterfield and Sims. Sims is 6-21 as a starter and led the nations in turnovers per game as a Power 5 player during his time. Like, at what point are we going to stop having such bad judgment? What does it say about Satterfield or Rhule that he picked Sims to be his guy? Why did we not pick a Smothers over Sims? Heck, I wish we had Torres right now. Now, you can agree or disagree with that part.
Sure.
Let's get to the meat of what he's saying. He says, I don't see why we go forward with Sims. I don't mean this as a shot at you, DB, but I keep thinking with Sims, if I'm not winning with you, I sure as heck can lose without you. Sims does a lot of losing. Now, he is using my line against me, because I'm the guy that has said before historically, well, we haven't won with you.
Yeah.
We certainly can win without you. Here's where that, because I like, and I asked him, I said, hey, man, can I read this out loud? Because I like other sides of the discussion. But what I'm saying is, what's the vision that he casted for the greater good of this team when he says things like, I'm not going to mortgage the future of these older guys on the backs of young players? What if that somehow is intertwined across the culture while we're trying to build in accountability? He just doesn't strike me as the type of coach, and I could be wrong. I'm telling you fine folks this. I think he's going to start with his staff.
So you mentioned that at the end of the last segment.
I think he's going to start with his staff in terms of accountability.
So what does that look like?
I'm not exactly sure.
Well, speculate for me.
I just don't think he would skip to the kid, to the young man. without saying.
So I get it with Garrett McGuire. I get it with EJ Barthel. I get it with some of the younger guys on staff, right? But we're talking about.
Do you think he looks at EJ and says, "Man, Gabe isn't our best runner in the open. He's certainly not the most natural of our runners. You can't teach a guy to hold the ball." And
Maybe.
he's gonna say, "Hey man, like I can't hold it for him." And then he's gonna say, "Okay, well this guy can't play." Right?
Sure.
Or maybe Anthony, I don't know, right? Like this hypothetical. And the other one is he goes to Satterfield, like, hey, are we not situationally putting him in, giving chances to succeed? And Coach Rhule's gonna say, you can't teach a guy to hold the ball. And he's like, Coach, he holds it in practice.
Yeah, if he catches the snaps in practice, if he's not making those bad reads in practice, if he's not rolling out.
I'm just giving you a hypothetical what Satterfield's explanation.
For sure.
He's like, Coach,
so if you've
seen him do this in practice.
The things you want, not the bad things, right?
So now what you have to, now you want your proof of concept, you better figure out if Jeff Sims has the yips. He's going to start with his staff first.
So whether it's the yips or whatever, something in mental is happening with Jeff Sims, whether it's focus, whether it's the yips, whatever, right? So my question is, and I asked this last week, I'm going to ask it again. How long can you live with a disconnect between what you see in practice and what happens in games?
I'm telling you right now, this week will tell you a ton. Remember the fluke coincidence trending?
We're at trending. We're at coincidence.
Three or more under this staff is trending. I know what fans are going to say. Fans are going to say, "Oh man,
you can't use the old stuff."
He's been like this. Yeah, well, you know what? When we got Jalen Lloyd, he caught 6 passes in his career too, and he could never stay healthy. So coaches don't think like that.
No, they don't.
We wouldn't continually see quarterbacks get drafted at the top of the draft either. So, like, you can't rationalize with irrational people.
Correct. So, but my question is, like, if your
coaches are fixers by nature,
I know, but at what point is it detrimental to you and to the rest of your team?
You're about to see.
Because at some point, even if it's right in practice, if it isn't right in games, you have to make a move to either do something else with that guy. Because listen, here where I'm at, I'm not saying the only answer is to bench Jeff Sims, but you either have to pair things. And listen, I'm hoping that dropping the snaps is an aberration, right? There's other concerning things about his play that, whether it's the interceptions in week 1 and against Colorado, there's other concerning things about his play that have me wondering if he's the right guy for this situation. If you want to run a QB run-centric offense where Jeff Sims is carrying the ball 20, 25 times a game, I can hear that argument, right? But at the same time, if you're in a situation where ownership and accountability matters, it matters for the coaches too. I get that. But if you're in that situation, there becomes a certain point where you lose credibility by continuing to put Jeff Sims out there, right? There is a point where that happens. I don't know if we're at that point. I'm not in the locker room. And I understand you have to thread the needle between having consequences for guys so they take ownership of their mistakes and putting trust in guys to allow them to make mistakes and still continue to play through them. Right? Those are the things we're trying to balance here. Right? But there's a difference between, hey, I made the wrong read, and hey, I'm just not holding on to the football.
So did he make progress on reads and progressions?
Probably yes.
Okay.
I would think so.
So are you waiting to see if he can make progressions on catching snaps?
That's fine.
No, it's not rhetorical.
No,
it's
I mean, we can wait if that's what they're telling me is like, hey, he made progression week 1 to week 2 on passing, 3 interceptions down to 1. We like that. We like the trend there. We need to now have this other thing. But if we get to week 3 and one of those 2 things are still the problem, or if there's a new problem I haven't even thought of yet, then at some point you kind of have to say to yourself, maybe this isn't it.
You start looking at
if it's always
getting to the bye and playing the long game with somebody else.
If it's always something, then it's the guy, not the situation.
I'm with you.
Right? Let's get to Random Mike on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Mike, what do you have for us?
One of my favorites. How are you doing, Mike?
Hey, you two are two of my favorites. I wish you nothing but the best. Hey, Damon.
Yes, sir, Mike.
Damon,
yes.
You can answer this pretty authoritatively. I was thinking it's obviously that Sims got a lot of talent, that things are happening too fast or getting shaken up. What about Jack Stark working with him, like he worked with Doug McDermott, and big part of his success?
That would be fantastic. Like I think if it's and I haven't spent enough times around Sims. We had a couple of meals together to know like what makes him tick. But for me, Doc Stark is never a bad place to start when you talk about like envisioning success, practicing repetitive success in your head, and kind of what makes you tick. Like I mean, and Jack would embrace it too.
Good. Hey, let's make it happen, because the good thing about giving stuff away is, and know that you're underachieving, you can be so much better, is that you can be so much better, and there's so many good things to build on. So hey, it can happen.
Yep, and we got a good deal for you too, Mike, with Drake Keeler and Jessica Cootie. We actually will have some women's basketball experts that we can cater to, because I know you love women's hoops.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, buddy. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care.
Big. He's a big women's hoops fan. Yeah, he and we chop it up about women's hoops.
So
I know you're miffed.
I'm not really miffed. I'm.
How explosive will our pod be? Do you want to fight, or like what?
No, I don't want to fight you, because I understand what you're saying. I think there's more validity to my side of the coin than just being emotional. Like
I don't think that.
Right.
I don't. That's not your I don't think that.
And I appreciate that, because like, listen, it's the emotional fan reaction is, hey, we got to pull Jeff Sims.
Yeah,
but there's a logical reason for it too.
No, I'm with you.
Right?
I'm with you.
There's a logical reason for saying, hey, this isn't really fair to the rest of the team to put them behind the 8 ball, because we think we need to ride with this guy. Now, you gave great examples in our last pod on Dish and Ish about how Amon Green had some fumbling problems and has told you, hey, they rode with me even when it probably wasn't in the best interest of my teammates.
Yeah, I've just seen it before. And he's not the only,
he's not the only one.
Right. Again, in 90 or 99 or 01, that team put the ball on the carpet 47 times.
98, I think.
98. That season.
Yes.
Put the ball on the carpet almost 50 times.
Yep.
Right. So I just think we're missing this component where we agree that coaches should stop coaching. Because at some point they can become their own worst enemy.
Right.
But they've done this for so long. It's what they do.
So this is the thing that I'm asking for, and it's probably harder than I know it's harder than it sounds, because I've been there.
Okay.
There has to be some level of self-awareness.
Oh, 100%.
Of saying, and this is where I get concerned, because I know
that's why he didn't bury him in the presser. He said, I need to go back and look at the snaps, the timing,
and this is what worries me a little bit, because not about Rhule necessarily, but coaches in general have such a confidence in themselves. I want to say ego almost.
You want that
to think you do, but at some point you have to understand what you're teaching isn't getting through.
Okay.
And when is that point? That's the part where the self-awareness becomes so important.
Do we need another hour?
We need several more, I think. We'll have 3 more for you.
We got NFL tomorrow. We got what's going on in Michigan State.
Texas, Bama.
The landscape of college football, man.
We'll have a busy week for you, and we'll be back tomorrow morning with the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.